July 1755. The British Empire is in shock. General Braddock is dead, and his elite regular army has been destroyed in the forests of the Ohio. The French and their Indian allies are now marching south, ready to burn the colonies to the ground. The professional redcoats from London had failed. Now, the only thing standing between the French army and the heart of New York was a ragtag force of colonial militia and Mohawk warriors. Technically, they fought under the British flag, but these were not European professionals. They were American colonists, farmers, woodsmen, and shopkeepers. They had no fancy uniforms, but they had one thing the British regulars didn't. They were fighting for their own homes. This is the Battle of Lake George, the day the American frontier fought back. Commanding the French forces was Baron Dieskau, a brilliant and aggressive general. His army consisted of elite French regulars in their pristine white uniforms, supported by Canadian militia and native warriors. Dieskau was completely confident. To him, the American colonists were just peasants with hunting rifles. Against him stood William Johnson, an Irishman who had lived among the Mohawk tribe for years. He commanded an army of New England provincials. Dieskau famously mocked his enemy, stating, "The more Americans there are, the more we shall kill." He was about to learn a very expensive lesson. On the morning of September 8th, Johnson sent a detachment of 1,000 men and 200 Mohawk warriors to scout the road. Leading the Mohawks was their legendary chief, King Hendrik. But Baron Dieskau was waiting. In a terrifying repeat of Braddock's disaster, the French sprung a massive ambush. The forest exploded in gunfire. King Hendrik was killed instantly. The American column began to crumble under the weight of French lead. History remembers this brutal moment as the Bloody Morning Scout. But unlike Braddock's men, the Americans didn't just freeze and die. They fought a desperate, fighting retreat back to their main camp, slowly luring the arrogant French general into a deadly trap of his own. Back at the camp, William Johnson prepared a surprise. The colonial farmers had piled up their supply wagons, felled trees, and overturned their boats to create a massive wooden barricade. They waited in absolute silence. The French regulars emerged from the woods in perfect lines, bayonets gleaming. They expected the terrified farmers to run, but as the French charged, the Americans unleashed a wall of fire. Johnson had brought up his cannons. They loaded them with grape shot, hundreds of metal balls that tore through the French ranks like a giant shotgun. For hours, the wilderness screamed with the sound of modern war. The French threw themselves at the barricades, but the colonial militia held the line. Baron Dieskau, the man who laughed at the Americans, was shot multiple times and captured on the battlefield. His army was broken. For the first time in the war, the invincible European regulars had been completely defeated by American provincials. This victory gave the colonies hope. It proved that in the dense woods of North America, a farmer with a rifle and a solid barricade was worth just as much as a marching grenadier. The road to the American Revolution had just begun. But the French and Indian War was far from over. Next time, we look at the darkest day of the American frontier, the tragedy behind the last of the Mohicans. Subscribe to not miss it.